In the far reaches of the Andromeda sector, where stars burned like tiny fires in an endless sea of darkness, there was a silence that seemed almost unnatural. The Galactic Empire had ruled these regions for centuries, its power stretching across countless systems and planets. Patrol ships moved through the void, their sensors scanning for any sign of trouble. It was routine, predictable, and uneventful, until today. Captain Alan Carter stood on the bridge of the Imperial scout ship Eclipse, his eyes fixed on the large screen displaying data from the long-range sensors. Something unusual had appeared, a massive object moving slowly but deliberately through the sector. At first glance, it looked like a derelict vessel, abandoned and drifting lifelessly, but closer inspection revealed something far more alarming. This was no ordinary ship. It was a battleship, larger than anything the Empire's engineers had ever designed. Its shape was unmistakably human. Alan frowned as he leaned over the console, his mind racing with questions. Humans were supposed to be confined to their home, System Earth, under strict Imperial oversight. They weren't allowed to venture beyond their borders without permission, and certainly not with a warship this size. How had they built such a thing, and why were they here, so far from their own territory? "Lieutenant," Alan said, turning to Grace Miller, his first officer, who stood nearby reviewing the same readings. "Run another scan. I want confirmation on what we're looking at." Grace nodded and quickly tapped commands into her terminal. Moments later, she turned back to him, her face pale. "It's confirmed, sir. The ship is of human design, there's no doubt about it." Alan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his short, cropped hair. He didn't like surprises, especially ones involving humans. For decades, they had been seen as primitive, struggling just to survive on their dying planet. Yet here they were, proving everyone wrong. "Notify command immediately," he ordered. "Tell them we've found something unexpected." Back at Imperial headquarters, Admiral Laura Bennett sat in her office, staring out at the glittering cityscape below. She was a woman known for her sharp mind and even sharper instincts, qualities that had earned her one of the highest ranks in the Empire. When Lieutenant Daniel Hughes entered the room carrying a datapad with urgent news, she could tell by the look on his face that something serious had happened. "What is it?" she asked, turning to face him. Daniel hesitated before speaking. "Admiral, one of our scout ships has detected a human battleship in the Andromeda sector. It's bigger than anything we've seen before." Laura raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "Bigger? Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am." Captain Carter sent detailed scans. "It's definitely human-made." She took the datapad from him and studied the images carefully. The ship was enormous, easily dwarfing most vessels in the Imperial fleet. Its surface gleamed with sleek metal panels, and its weapons arrays bristled menacingly. Whoever had built this wasn't playing games. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. If humanity had developed technology like this, it meant they were far more advanced than anyone had realized. And if they were willing to bring it this deep into Imperial space, their intentions couldn't be trusted. "Send orders to all nearby patrols," she said finally. "I want every available ship redirected to investigate. Keep your distance until we know more, but don't let them out of your sight." "Yes, ma'am," Daniel replied, saluting before hurrying out of the room. Meanwhile, aboard the mysterious human battleship, Commander Rachel Dawson walked briskly through the dimly lit corridors. Her boots echoed softly against the metal floor as she made her way to the bridge. The crew moved around her with quiet efficiency, their faces tense but focused. Everyone knew the stakes. This mission wasn't just about survival, it was about hope. Rachel stepped onto the bridge and surveyed the scene. Screens displayed streams of data, showing the positions of several Imperial ships closing in around them. So far, none had attacked, but it was only a matter of time. She glanced at Lieutenant Michael Kane, her second-in-command, who stood beside her. "They're getting closer," Michael said grimly. "What's the plan, Commander?" "For now, we stay calm," Rachel replied, keeping her voice steady, despite the tension in the air. "We're not here to fight. We're here to find a new home. Let's make sure they understand that." Michael nodded, though his expression remained skeptical. "And if they don't listen?" Then we'll deal with it, Rachel said firmly. But let's not jump to conclusions yet. As the hours passed, the situation grew more precarious. Imperial cruisers surrounded the battleship, their weapons locked and ready. Captain Alan Carter hailed them repeatedly, demanding answers. Finally, Rachel decided it was time to respond. She activated the communication system and spoke into the microphone. "This is Commander Rachel Dawson of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet," she began, her voice clear and unwavering. "We mean no harm. Our mission is peaceful." There was a moment of silence before Carter's voice crackled over the speakers. "Commander Dawson, this is Captain Alan Carter of the Galactic Empire. You are in restricted space. Explain your presence here." Rachel hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Our planet is dying. We came seeking refuge, a place where we can rebuild and start anew. We pose no threat to your empire." Carter exchanged glances with Grace, who shrugged slightly. Neither of them knew how to respond. On one hand, the commander's explanation made sense. On the other hand, the sheer size of the battleship suggested otherwise. Could humanity really have created something like this without outside help? And if so, what did that mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? "We'll need proof of your claims," Carter said finally. "Prepare to transmit all relevant data." Rachel nodded even though he couldn't see her. "Understood. Transmitting now." The next few minutes felt like an eternity as the two sides exchanged information. Rachel sent images and videos of Earth, its barren landscapes, polluted skies, and starving populations. It was a desperate plea for understanding, but it also revealed humanity's resilience. Back on the Eclipse, Carter watched the footage with growing unease. Whatever else these humans might be, they were clearly survivors. When the transmission ended, Carter turned to Grace. "What do you think?" "I think we need to tread carefully," she replied. "If they're telling the truth, this changes everything." Carter agreed. He relayed the information back to Admiral Bennett, who convened an emergency council to discuss the situation. Some advisors argued for immediate action, suggesting that the humans should be destroyed before they became a threat. Others urged caution, pointing out that attacking without provocation could lead to disastrous consequences. Laura listened to both sides, weighing the risks and rewards. In the end, she decided on a middle ground. "For now, we observe," she announced, "but prepare for any possibility. If they make a single hostile move, we act decisively." Her orders were carried out swiftly, and the Imperial fleet maintained its position around the human battleship. Tensions remained high, but, for the moment, neither side made a move. Both knew that the coming days would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. On board the battleship, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being tested. Every decision she made, every word she spoke, would shape how the Empire viewed them. She gathered her senior staff for a meeting, determined to keep morale high despite the uncertainty. "We're not alone anymore," she told them. "The Empire knows we're here, and they're watching us closely. But we have nothing to hide. We came here seeking peace, and that's exactly what we'll show them." Her words resonated with the crew, who nodded in agreement. Though fear lingered beneath the surface, they trusted Rachel to guide them through whatever lay ahead. Together, they prepared for the challenges to come, knowing that their actions would define humanity's place in the stars. As the standoff continued, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see whether this encounter would lead to conflict or cooperation. For now, the outcome remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity's arrival in the Andromeda sector had already begun to reshape the course of history. The days that followed were tense and filled with uncertainty. The human battleship remained stationary, its massive form looming like a shadow against the backdrop of stars. Around it, Imperial cruisers maintained their positions, weapons at the ready but not firing. Both sides seemed to be waiting for the other to make the first move, each trying to gauge the intentions of the other. Captain Alan Carter stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, his eyes fixed on the screens displaying real-time data from the sensors. He had reviewed the footage Rachel Dawson had sent multiple times, studying the images of Earth's desolation. It was hard to deny the truth in what she had shown. Barren lands, polluted skies, and people struggling to survive. If humanity truly was on the brink of extinction, then their arrival in the Andromeda sector made sense, but Alan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. He turned to Grace Miller, who was seated at her station nearby. "What do you think, Lieutenant? Do you believe them?" Grace hesitated before answering. "I don't know, sir. The evidence seems genuine, but we can't ignore the size of that ship. They didn't build something like that overnight. Someone must have helped them, or they've been hiding their true capabilities for years." Alan nodded. That thought had crossed his mind as well. If humanity had advanced this far without the Empire noticing, it meant they were either incredibly resourceful or had allies within the galaxy. Either possibility was troubling. He sighed and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. We need more answers. Back at Imperial headquarters, Admiral Laura Bennett paced her office deep in thought. The council meeting she had called had ended in disagreement, with no clear consensus on how to proceed. Some argued that the humans should be allowed to leave peacefully, while others insisted they posed too great a risk to ignore. The Emperor himself had weighed in, demanding swift action to protect the Empire's interests. Yet Laura knew that acting rashly could lead to disaster. She needed more information before making a decision. She summoned Lieutenant Daniel Hughes to her office and handed him a datapad containing new orders. "I want you to go to the front lines," she said firmly. "Observe the situation firsthand, and report back directly to me. I need to know everything, who these humans are, what they're capable of, and what they really want." "Yes, ma'am," Daniel replied, saluting before leaving the room. Meanwhile, aboard the human battleship, Commander Rachel Dawson gathered her senior staff for another meeting. The mood among the crew was growing restless, and whispers of doubt began to spread. Many wondered if they had made a mistake coming here, fearing that the Empire would never trust them. Rachel understood their concerns but refused to let fear dictate their actions. "We came here for a reason," she reminded them. "Earth is dying, and we need a new home. If we give up now, we condemn our species to extinction. We have to stay strong." Lieutenant Michael Kane, ever the skeptic, spoke up. "With respect, Commander, staying strong won't matter if they decide to attack us. We're outnumbered and surrounded. What's our plan if things go south?" Rachel met, his gaze steadily. "Our plan is to avoid conflict at all costs. We'll keep communicating with them, showing them that we're not a threat. If necessary, we'll prove our peaceful intentions through action." Dr. Emily Ross, the ship's chief scientist, nodded in agreement. "Commander, perhaps we should consider sending someone over to meet with them face-to-face. A personal interaction might help ease tensions." Rachel considered the suggestion carefully. It was risky, but it could also work. Sending an envoy might humanize their cause, making it harder for the Empire to see them as enemies. After a moment of deliberation, she made her decision. "All right," she said. "Prepare a shuttle. Dr. Ross, you'll represent us." Emily straightened, surprised but determined. "Understood, Commander." The next morning, a small shuttle detached from the human battleship and approached the nearest Imperial cruiser. Inside, Emily sat nervously, clutching a folder containing detailed records of Earth's condition and humanity's plight. She rehearsed what she would say in her mind, hoping to convey both sincerity and strength. When the shuttle docked, Emily stepped out cautiously, flanked by 2 armed guards. Captain Alan Carter and Lieutenant Grace Miller were waiting for her, their expressions guarded. For a moment no one spoke, the silence heavy with unspoken questions. "Welcome aboard," Alan said finally, breaking the ice. "I'm Captain Carter, and this is Lieutenant Miller. I'm Dr. Emily Ross," Emily replied, offering a polite nod. "Thank you for receiving me." Alan gestured for her to follow him, leading her to a conference room where they could speak privately. Once seated, he wasted no time getting to the point. "Dr. Ross, tell us why you're really here." Emily took a deep breath and began explaining. She described Earth's dire state, the depletion of resources, the collapse of ecosystems, and the suffering of billions. She showed them charts and graphs illustrating how humanity had reached the tipping point, leaving them no choice but to seek refuge elsewhere. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but her conviction never wavered. "We're not invaders," she emphasized. "We're refugees. All we want is a chance to survive, to find a planet where we can rebuild and start over. We don't wish to harm anyone." Grace listened intently, her expression softening slightly. "If what you're saying is true, then your situation is dire. But why come here? Why not ask for help openly?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Because we knew how the Empire views us as primitive, insignificant. We feared rejection, or worse. So we chose to take matters into our own hands." Alan leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "And the ship? How did you manage to build something like that?" "It wasn't easy," Emily admitted. "It took decades of research and sacrifice. Every resource we had left was poured into this project. We designed it ourselves using technology we developed over centuries. No outside help was involved." Alan exchanged glances with Grace, who gave a slight nod. While skepticism lingered, Emily's explanation seemed plausible. Still, the implications were staggering. If humanity had achieved such feats independently, it meant they were far more capable than anyone had realized. After several hours of discussion, Alan concluded the meeting. "Thank you for your honesty, Dr. Ross. I'll relay your message to command, but I can't promise anything. Until then, please return to your ship and remain patient." Emily nodded, relief washing over her. "Thank you, Captain. I hope you understand our position." As the shuttle departed, Alan turned to Grace. "What do you think? Do we trust them?" Grace shrugged. "I don't know. But one thing's for sure. They're not going anywhere anytime soon." Back aboard the human battleship, Rachel greeted Emily warmly upon her return. "How did it go?" she asked anxiously. "They listened," Emily replied. "Whether they believe us remains to be seen, but I think we made progress." Rachel smiled, faint resource. The hours following Emily Ross's return to the human battleship were filled with quiet anticipation. Commander Rachel Dawson paced the bridge, her mind replaying every detail of Emily's report. The Imperial officers had listened, yes, but listening wasn't the same as trusting. Rachel knew that actions spoke louder than words, and until the Empire saw proof of humanity's peaceful intentions, their fate remained uncertain. On board the Eclipse, Captain Alan Carter faced a similar dilemma. After relaying Emily's message to Admiral Laura Bennett, he awaited further instructions. In the meantime, his crew continued monitoring the human battleship closely, analyzing every transmission and movement. Despite Emily's assurances, doubts lingered in Alan's mind. If humanity truly was on the brink of extinction, why had they come so far? Why risk provoking the Empire instead of seeking help through official channels? Admiral Bennett, meanwhile, convened another emergency council at Imperial headquarters. The room buzzed with tension as advisors debated the best course of action. General William Hayes, a grizzled veteran known for his aggressive tactics, argued forcefully for an immediate strike. "We can't afford to wait," he insisted. "If these humans are as advanced as they claim, they could become a serious threat. We need to neutralize them now." Lieutenant Daniel Hughes, who had returned from the front lines with fresh insights, countered this argument. "With respect, General, attacking without provocation could turn public opinion against us. These humans aren't acting aggressively. They're pleading for survival. If we respond with violence, we'll look like tyrants." Laura Bennett listened carefully, weighing both sides. She understood Hayes's concerns. Humanity's sudden appearance challenged everything the Empire thought it knew about power dynamics in the galaxy. But she also recognized the risks of escalation. Attacking the humans outright might spark retaliation, or even galvanize other factions within the Empire to rise against her leadership. For now, restraint seemed the wiser path. "General Hayes," she said finally, "I appreciate your perspective, but I won't authorize an attack unless absolutely necessary. For now we observe. However, she paused, glancing around the table. I will approve a covert operation to gather more intelligence. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Hayes frowned but nodded reluctantly. Understood, Admiral. Orders were issued swiftly. A team of elite operatives prepared to infiltrate the human battleship under cover of darkness. Their mission: plant surveillance devices and gather data on the ship's capabilities. If successful, the operation would provide the Empire with critical information that could tip the scales in their favor. Back aboard the human battleship, Lieutenant Michael Kane grew increasingly uneasy. He had been reviewing sensor logs when he noticed something odd, a faint energy signature drifting near the ship's hull. At first he dismissed it as debris, but the pattern didn't match anything natural. Concerned, he brought it to Rachel's. "Attention, Commander," he said urgently, stepping onto the bridge. "We may have a problem. Sensors picked up something unusual outside the ship. It could be nothing, but—" Rachel straightened, her expression hardening. "Or it could be trouble. Have the crew double-check the readings and prepare defensive measures just in case." Michael nodded and relayed the orders. Within minutes, technicians scrambled to recalibrate the sensors while pilots readied their fighters. Rachel kept a close eye on the monitors, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. Her suspicions proved correct. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the ship as multiple contacts appeared on the screens. Imperial stealth fighters, cloaked until now, decloaked and launched an assault. Explosions rocked the battleship's outer hull as the attackers fired precision shots designed to disable rather than destroy. "Battle stations!" Rachel shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Return fire, but focus on defense. Don't let them breach the hull." The crew sprang into action, their training kicking in despite the shock of the ambush. Gunners targeted the enemy fighters with relentless accuracy, downing several before they could cause significant damage. Pilots launched counterattacks, engaging the Imperial ships in fierce dogfights. The once silent void of space erupted into a maelstrom of laser fire and explosions. Amid the chaos, Rachel remained calm, issuing commands with precision. "Seal off all affected sections. Divert power to shields and life support." Michael stood beside her, coordinating the response. "Shields are holding, but barely. They're hitting us hard." "I know," Rachel replied grimly. "Just keep them busy long enough for repairs." The battle raged for what felt like hours, though in reality it lasted only minutes. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The human battleship's superior firepower and advanced shielding technology gave it an edge over the Imperial fighters. One by one, the enemy ships were either destroyed or forced to retreat. When the last fighter disappeared into the void, silence fell over the battleship. Crew members exchanged weary glances, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Rachel exhaled sharply, leaning against the console for support. They had survived, but barely. "Damage report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Minor breaches in sectors 3 and 5, Michael replied after consulting the screens. "No casualties reported. Repairs are already underway." Rachel nodded, relief washing over her. "Good work, everyone. Stay vigilant. This isn't over yet." Captain Alan Carter watched the aftermath of the failed operation from the safety of the Eclipse. Reports from the surviving pilots painted a sobering picture. The human battleship was far more formidable than anticipated. Its defenses were impenetrable, its weapon systems unmatched. Whatever humanity had achieved in secret, it had clearly invested heavily in military innovation. Grace Miller approached him, her expression troubled. "Sir, Command wants a full debrief. What do we tell them?" Alan sighed, rubbing his temples. "We tell them the truth, that we underestimated our opponents. These humans aren't just survivors, they're warriors." Grace nodded slowly. "Do you think they'll try again?" "I don't know," Alan admitted. "But if they do, it won't end well for either side." At Imperial headquarters, Admiral Laura Bennett received the news of the failed operation with mounting frustration. Her gamble had backfired spectacularly, and now the Empire looked weak in the eyes of its adversaries. Worse still, humanity's resilience had been broadcast loud and clear. not just to the Empire, but potentially to other factions watching, from the shadows. She summoned General Hayes and Lieutenant Hughes to her office, her tone sharp as she addressed them. This cannot happen again. We need a new approach, one that doesn't involve bloodshed. Hayes scowled but held his tongue. Hughes, seizing the opportunity, stepped forward. Admiral, perhaps it's time to consider diplomacy. Offer them safe passage in exchange for cooperation. If we show goodwill, they might reciprocate. Laura hesitated, considering the proposal. Diplomacy wasn't her first choice, but given the circumstances, it might be the only viable option. Very well, she said finally. Draft a proposal. Let's see if they're willing to talk. Aboard the human battleship, Rachel and her crew braced themselves for another attack, or worse. Instead, they received a transmission from the Eclipse. On screen, Captain Alan Carter appeared, his expression unusually somber. Commander Dawson, he began. I apologize for the recent incident. It was not sanctioned by Imperial Command. To prevent further conflict, Admiral Bennett has authorized me to offer you a proposal. Rachel raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. Go on. You will be granted safe passage out of Imperial space, Alan continued. In return, we ask that you share your technological advancements with us. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. Rachel exchanged glances with Michael and Emily, weighing the offer. It was tempting. Safe passage meant freedom to continue their search for a new home. But sharing their technology carried risks. Once the Empire had access to their secrets, there was no guarantee they wouldn't use them against humanity later. Finally, Rachel spoke. We'll consider your proposal, but know this. If you betray us, we'll fight back. And next time, we won't hold back. Alan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Fair enough. Await further instructions. As the transmission ended, Rachel turned to her crew. What do you think? Emily spoke first. It's risky, but refusing might mean more attacks. We need time to regroup and find a solution. Michael agreed reluctantly. She's right. For now, diplomacy is our best shot. Rachel nodded, her resolve firm. Then we accept, but with conditions. Safe passage, mutual disarmament during negotiations, and guarantees of transparency. The decision made, Rachel sent her reply to the Eclipse. As she waited for a response, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Humanity's arrival in the Andromeda sector had already changed the galaxy, and whether, for better or worse, remained to be seen. The proposal from the Galactic Empire hung in the air like a fragile thread, connecting two sides that had only just begun to understand each other. Aboard the human battleship, Commander Rachel Dawson called another meeting with her senior staff to discuss the terms of the Empire's offer. The room buzzed with tension as everyone shared their thoughts, weighing the risks and rewards. Lieutenant Michael Kane was the first to voice his concerns. Safe passage sounds good on paper, but how do we know they won't turn on us once we've handed over our technology? This could be a trap, Dr. Emily Ross countered him calmly. It might be a risk, but refusing outright will only lead to more conflict. We can't afford another battle, not after what just happened. If we agree to their terms, we might buy ourselves enough time to find a new home. Rachel listened carefully, considering both perspectives. She understood Michael's skepticism. Trust wasn't something easily earned, especially when dealing with an empire known for its dominance. But she also recognized Emily's point. Diplomacy offered a chance to de-escalate tensions and focus on their mission: survival. We'll accept the proposal, Rachel said finally, her tone firm, but we'll set conditions of our own. Mutual disarmament during negotiations is non-negotiable, and if they want our technology, they'll have to share some of theirs in return. Michael frowned but didn't argue further. He trusted Rachel's judgment even if he didn't fully agree with it. Understood, Commander. I'll prepare the crew for any possibility. Captain Alan Carter received Rachel's counteroffer with mixed feelings. On one hand, he admired her determination to protect her people. On the other hand, he knew Admiral Bennett wouldn't take kindly to demands, no matter how reasonable they seemed. Still, he forwarded the message to command, hoping cooler heads would prevail. Admiral Laura Bennett reviewed the updated terms with a mixture of frustration and admiration. Humanity's insistence on safeguards showed they weren't naive. They understood the stakes and were willing to fight for their rights. For a brief moment, Laura wondered what it must feel like to lead such a resilient species. Then reality snapped her back into focus. This complicates things. General William Hayes growled during the council meeting. They're trying to negotiate from a position of strength. We should crush them now while we still can. Lieutenant Daniel Hughes shook his head. General, attacking again would only prove their point, that we can't be trusted. If we want to maintain stability, we need to meet them halfway. Laura leaned back in her chair, tapping her fingers against the table. She disliked compromise, almost as much as Hayes did, but Hughes had a valid point. Destroying humanity now would make the Empire look ruthless, potentially alienating allies and sparking unrest within its borders. Reluctantly, she nodded. Fine, she said sharply. We'll agree to their terms, for now, but keep surveillance active. If they try anything suspicious, we act immediately. Orders were sent out to Captain Carter, who relayed them to Rachel Dawson. Both sides agreed to begin negotiations aboard the Eclipse and neutral ground where neither side held a clear advantage. As preparations got underway, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Hostility gave way to cautious curiosity, though suspicion lingered beneath the surface. When the day of the negotiations arrived, Rachel boarded a shuttle alongside Dr. Emily Ross and Lieutenant Michael Kane. The journey to the Eclipse was quiet. Each member of the delegation lost in their thoughts. Rachel rehearsed her arguments in her mind, knowing that every word she spoke would shape humanity's future. Emily double-checked the data they planned to present, while Michael kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Captain Carter and Lieutenant Grace Miller, who escorted them to a conference room. The space was sparsely decorated, with a large table dominating the center. Chairs had been arranged evenly on either side, symbolizing equality, or at least the illusion of it. Once everyone was seated, Alan opened the discussion. Thank you for coming. Let's start by addressing your conditions. Mutual disarmament will be enforced during these talks, and any exchange of information will be transparent. Rachel nodded, appreciating the gesture. We appreciate your cooperation. Now let's get down to business. Our primary goal is finding a habitable planet where humanity can rebuild. In exchange for sharing our advancements, we ask for assistance in locating suitable candidates. Grace spoke up, her tone measured. That seems fair. However, identifying planets requires resources. Are you prepared to contribute to the effort? Emily took over, presenting detailed charts and projections. We've already identified several potential systems based on our scans. With access to Imperial databases, we can narrow down the list significantly. All we ask is permission to explore those regions. Alan glanced at Grace, who gave a slight nod. Turning back to Rachel, he said, We'll grant you access to restricted areas under strict supervision. But remember, one wrong move and the deal is off. Rachel met his gaze steadily. Understood. We have no intention of breaking our word. As the negotiations continued, small bonds began to form between the two groups. Emily worked closely with Grace to analyze technical data, their shared passion for science bridging cultural gaps. Michael remained guarded, but found himself respecting Alan's professionalism. Even Rachel noticed a shift in the dynamic. While caution persisted, there was a flicker of hope. By the end of the session, agreements had been reached on key points. Humanity would share select pieces of its technology, focusing on innovations related to resource management and environmental restoration. In return, the Empire promised to assist in finding a new home and provided temporary safe passage through Imperial space. Both sides acknowledged that trust would take time to build, but progress had been made. Back aboard the human battleship, Rachel addressed her crew, summarizing the outcome. We've secured a path forward, she announced. It's not perfect, and we'll need to stay vigilant, but it gives us a chance to achieve our mission." The crew responded with subdued cheers, relief washing over them. For the first time in days, there was a sense of optimism, a fragile but tangible belief that survival was possible. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, Alan and Grace debriefed their team. While relieved that violence had been avoided, they couldn't ignore the broader implications of the agreement. Humanity's presence challenged everything the Empire thought it knew about power dynamics in the galaxy. Their resilience and ingenuity forced the Empire to reconsider its assumptions, and perhaps its policies. "They're stronger than we expected," Grace admitted quietly as they stood together on the bridge. "Stronger and smarter. What happens if others follow their example?" Alan sighed, staring out at the stars. "I don't know, but one thing's certain. The galaxy won't be the same after this." In the days that followed, joint operations began. Imperial scientists collaborated with human engineers, studying advanced systems and developing solutions to shared challenges. Exploration teams scoured distant systems, searching for planets capable of supporting life. Tensions occasionally flared, reminders of the deep-seated mistrust between the two sides, but cooperation gradually became the norm. For Rachel and her crew, the experience was bittersweet. They had achieved a measure of peace, but the cost weighed heavily on their minds. Every concession, every compromise felt like a step away from independence. Yet they reminded themselves of their ultimate goal, survival. Without it, nothing else mattered. As the human battleship moved deeper into uncharted territory, Rachel gazed out at the endless expanse of space. She thought about Earth, its barren landscapes and broken dreams, and the billions of lives depending on her success. Whatever lay ahead, challenges or triumphs, she vowed to face it head-on. And so, amidst the cold vastness of the cosmos, humanity forged a fragile alliance with the Galactic Empire. It was a partnership born of necessity rather than trust, marked by uncertainty and guarded optimism. Whether it would endure remained to be seen, but for now, hope burned brightly, guiding them toward a future worth fighting for. The weeks that followed the agreement between humanity and the Galactic Empire were a mix of cautious optimism and underlying tension. Both sides worked together, sharing knowledge and resources as promised, but trust remained fragile. Aboard the human battleship, Commander Rachel Dawson kept a close eye on every interaction with their Imperial counterparts. She knew that one wrong move could undo all the progress they had made. Lieutenant Michael Kane shared her concerns. While he respected Rachel's decision to negotiate with the Empire, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. "Commander," he said during one of their daily briefings, "we're giving them access to our technology. What's stopping them from using it against us later?" Rachel turned to face him, her expression calm but firm. "We've taken precautions, Michael. Everything we share is carefully controlled. Nothing critical enough to give them an advantage. Besides, we don't have a choice. If we want to find a new home, we need their help." Michael nodded reluctantly. He trusted Rachel's judgment, even if he didn't fully agree with it. Still, he resolved to stay vigilant, watching for any signs of betrayal. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, and Captain Alan Carter found himself in a similar position. His crew was divided over how to handle the humans. Some saw them as potential allies, while others viewed them as threats. Grace Miller, ever the voice of reason, tried to bridge the gap. "They're not invaders," she reminded her colleagues during a meeting. "They're refugees, just like anyone else who's lost their home." Alan appreciated her perspective but knew it wasn't shared by everyone. General William Hayes, in particular, continued to push for aggressive action. During a call with Admiral Laura Bennett, he argued forcefully, "Sir, this truce is a mistake. Every day we delay, they grow stronger. We need to act now before it's too late." Laura listened patiently, though her patience was wearing thin. "General, I understand your concerns, but attacking them would only prove their point, that we can't be trusted. For now, we maintain the agreement. That's an order." Hayes clenched his jaw but didn't argue further. He knew better than to disobey a direct command, but his frustration simmered beneath the surface. As joint operations progressed, small victories began to emerge. Imperial scientists and human engineers collaborated on projects aimed at improving resource efficiency and environmental restoration. These innovations held promise not just for humanity, but for the Empire as well. Lieutenant Daniel Hughes, tasked with overseeing the partnership, reported back to Admiral Bennett regularly. "Admiral," he said during one briefing, "the humans are proving invaluable. Their methods are unconventional but effective. With their help, we've developed solutions that could benefit entire sectors." Laura raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "Such as?" "For example, water purification systems capable of sustaining large populations in arid regions, and advancements in agriculture that reduce waste while increasing yields." "It's impressive work." She nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps there was merit in cooperation after all. "Keep me updated," she instructed. "And ensure security remains tight." "Yes, ma'am." Back aboard the human battleship, Dr. Emily Ross threw herself into the collaborative efforts. Her expertise in biology and chemistry made her a valuable asset, earning respect from both sides. Working alongside Grace Miller, she discovered new ways to adapt Earth-based technologies for use in alien environments. The two women developed a mutual admiration, finding common ground despite their differences. One evening, as they reviewed data together, Grace spoke candidly. "Dr. Ross, I have to admit, I underestimated you and your people. You've achieved remarkable things under difficult circumstances." Emily smiled faintly. "Thank you, Lieutenant. But remember, we didn't do it alone. Humanity has always been resilient, yes, but we've also been lucky. Finding allies like you, it gives us hope." Grace hesitated, then nodded. "I hope we can continue to work together, not just for survival, but for something greater." Despite these glimmers of progress, challenges persisted. Exploration teams sent to scout potential planets often returned empty-handed. Many worlds proved inhospitable, lacking the necessary conditions to support human life. Frustration mounted among Rachel's crew, who began to question whether their mission was doomed to fail. During one particularly disheartening debriefing, Michael voiced his doubts. "Commander, we've searched dozens of systems. Nothing so far meets our requirements. What happens if we never find a suitable planet?" Rachel sighed, understanding his fears. "Then we keep searching. There are billions of stars out there, Michael. Somewhere there's a world waiting for us. We just have to keep looking." Her words offered little comfort, but they reinforced her leadership. No matter how bleak things seemed, Rachel refused to give up, and her determination inspired those around her. Tensions flared again when rumors spread within the Empire about humanity's true intentions. Some factions accused Admiral Bennett of weakness, claiming she had allowed the humans to gain too much influence. Others whispered of secret alliances forming between humanity and dissident groups within the Empire. Laura faced mounting pressure to justify her decisions even as she struggled to maintain control. At a high-level council meeting, Emperor Charles Monroe addressed the issue directly. "Admiral Bennett," he began, his tone sharp. "Explain yourself. Why are we helping these refugees?" Laura stood tall, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Your Majesty, this alliance benefits us as much as it does them. Their innovations have already improved Imperial capabilities, and their presence has sparked renewed interest in exploration. Furthermore, destroying them outright would risk destabilizing the Empire. Cooperation is the smarter path, for now." The Emperor studied her carefully before nodding slowly. "Very well. Continue your efforts, but remember, failure will not be tolerated." "Yes, Your Majesty." Amidst the political maneuvering, a breakthrough finally came. An exploration team led by Emily and Grace identified a promising candidate, a planet orbiting a distant star, rich in natural resources and boasting a stable climate. Initial scans suggested it could support human life with minimal terraforming. When the news reached Rachel, she felt a surge of cautious excitement. This could be it, she told her senior staff. Our chance to start over. Michael nodded, though skepticism lingered in his eyes. "Let's confirm it first. Send probes, gather more data. We can't afford another disappointment. Agreeing with his caution, Rachel ordered additional reconnaissance missions. Days turned into weeks as the teams worked tirelessly, analyzing soil samples, atmospheric conditions, and ecological factors. Finally, the results came back. The planet was viable. When Rachel announced the discovery to her crew, cheers erupted throughout the ship. For the first time in months, hope replaced despair. They had found a new home, a place where humanity could rebuild and thrive. With permission from Admiral Bennett, the human battleship set course for the new planet. As they approached, Rachel gathered her crew for one final address. "This journey hasn't been easy," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We've faced danger, doubt, and despair. But through it all, we've stayed united. Today we take the first step toward a brighter future, a future where we can heal, grow, and dream again." The crew responded with applause, tears streaming down many faces. They had endured unimaginable hardships, but now they stood on the brink of renewal. As the battleship descended toward the planet's surface, Rachel gazed out at the lush landscapes below. Green fields stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with sparkling rivers and towering forests. It was beautiful, a second chance for humanity. Captain Alan Carter watched from the eclipse as the humans made landfall. Though he knew their alliance was far from perfect, he couldn't deny the significance of the moment. Humanity had proven itself resilient, resourceful, and determined. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget the day humans arrived in the Andromeda sector. And so, amidst the vastness of space, a fragile partnership took root, a testament to the power of cooperation and the enduring spirit of survival. Though challenges lay ahead, both humanity and the Galactic Empire had taken a step toward understanding. In the end, it was hope that guided them forward, a fragile but unyielding light in the darkness of the cosmos.